is episode 354 of GI Joburg. My name is Steve. I'm joined by Paul. I'm joined by Rob, and we are talking 1987's Cobra
Battle
Commander.
Android Cobra Commander.
Or is it? Is this Cobra Commander, or is this something entirely different? I know, personally, when I saw this in catalogs and on the backs of cards, I did not think that looked like Cobra Commander. I wasn't entirely sure what I thought Cobra Commander should look like, but this wasn't it.
They only got the colors right in 97, finally.
Well, whatever they did with this sculpt later on, its first iteration did not scream Cobra Commander to me. And I guess I wasn't alone in that regard, because noted author of G.I. Joe, Larry Hama, must have thought the same thing. We'll get into that. But Paul, Rob, opening thoughts on this figure.
It's an impressive toy. It's an impressive toy, and it's a mad design. That's my opening thought. Rob?
It's different. It's something else. It's obviously not the way that we're used to seeing him, but it's still kind of cool. Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. So I think the longest section in terms of media appearances we're going to talk about will definitely be Larry's work on this character in the comic books, where Cobra Commander's on the outs, right? Serpentor's shown up and really stolen his thunder, stolen the entire organization out from under him. So he shacks up with Fred 7, a guy who runs a pretty innocuous auto shop in Denver. But he's actually a mechanical genius. He creates prosthetic limbs for Billy.
Pogo.
He created the Cobra Pogo, and he created the battle armor. This thing can withstand close-range bullets from machine guns. It can crush an engine block with its incredible mechanical strength. And it probably offers sufficient spinal support for the occupant to operate the Pogo successfully, as we see in the issues. But it also conceals the occupant's identity with a helmet that has an anti-tamper device that, once again, has explosives hooked up to it. How that's supposed to be encouraging for the wearer, I don't know. Like, Rob's just yanked off the helmet on his modern one, so boom, he's on a timer. That head's gone. So, with that reasoning, when Cobra Commander decides to go straight and turn his back on everything that he'd built, Fred 7 decides, hell to the no, I've done too much for this organization to suddenly have it just implode, shoots Cobra Commander in the back, buries him in the woods, and adopts his identity wearing this uniform. He then travels to Cobra Island, has his identity not verified by Baroness. Baroness and him, go into the back of a Cobra transport helicopter because everyone's wondering, is this the true Cobra Commander? Well, Baroness has just arrived from the Cobra consulate, so let's have her take a look at his face, because Baroness has apparently seen Cobra Commander's real face. She, obviously, the jig is up because he yanks off the helmet to reveal Fred 7, and she's like, actually, no, we can let this ride for a little bit. Let's play it to our advantage. I mean, they both play that situation to their advantages because they're both shipping, aren't they?
Keep the helmet on.
Fred 7 got that Baroness PT.
I like that heavy metal.
I mean, I wonder what Destro would have thought of that. I mean, it's surely just a relationship of convenience. But, if ever there was evidence that Baroness used her feminine wiles to climb the Cobra hierarchy, you got it right there.
Is it feminine wiles? It's more like manipulation. She's like, if she outed him, he would stop being Cobra Commander, and then someone else would be in charge.
Was I too unclear? No, they were.
Oh, were they?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. They had a relationship.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's because she was using her. Yeah, she was using her whatever assets she had to be able to, control Fred to be in charge herself of Cobra. I think fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, in the later issues, once the Cobra Island Civil War wraps up, Fred and Dr. Mindbender turn their attention on Destro and try and take him out because he's sort of rivaling Cobra in terms of arms sales. But then they create an alliance. And that always seems strange to me. Like, you're going to make an alliance with the man who was screwing your girl? Eesh, that's eating
Keep
some
your
humble
enemies
pie,
close.
Mr. Destro. Anyway, I think that brings us up to date on his comic book appearances. Like, it was initially Cobra Commander's outfit. I mean, he uses it successfully, or semi-successfully. Successfully in that he survives his encounter piloting the Pogo in this armor, but he doesn't manage to actually destroy the Joes. Fred 7 is more successful in his infiltration of Cobra Island because he packs this on the back of Captain Min's boat, and once the boat is going to be scuttled, he launches into the air and I think dispatches 1 or 2 Mambas and lands successfully on Cobra Island. So I guess in the hands of the master, the man who created the armor and the Pogo, it can be an effective assault tool.
Absolutely. It just all came from Larry being like, this isn't Cobra Commander. Let me write an entirely different story. And that just spiraled into the Civil War, spiraled into a ton of storylines.
Rob,
That's
did you have the
fantastic.
same opinion of the figure? I mean, you must have seen it on the same catalogs that I did.
Yeah.
Because I can distinctly remember as a child, I mean, it's an early memory, but I can remember seeing this picture and thinking, that says Cobra Commander, but it doesn't look like a Cobra Commander or any version that I would imagine.
I don't know. I feel like I did kind of accept it in a way. I was just like, that is kind of Cobra Commander. But I didn't see him as often as I did the other 2 versions, I think. Or more modern, the 90s version. I'm
trying to remember. Yeah, this version of him is in the game, isn't he?
We'll get to that one next. But yeah, Paul, I mean, the opening question, like when you first encountered this figure, be it on a catalog or a card back or the figure itself, which was it? When did you see it first?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was in the catalog. Okay. But I'll tell you this much. I have this weird memory of this guy, of Cobra Commander. I remember seeing him and sort of being reminded of Shredder, Master Shredder, or Shredder from the Ninja Turtles. And then also, in a weird way, the Predator. And I think it's got a lot to do with the kind of the shape of the helmet. And there was just something about this that just like really spoke of Shredder and Predator for me. And although I didn't, I remember thinking that was really cool until I'd seen it like bigger. And then I thought, oh, wait, hold on. Maybe that's not so cool. Yeah, no. Like maybe it's not such a great like design, but yeah, I think it must have been a catalog that I saw him on the first time, but I'm trying to remember which one, because there's that. It's not the catalog that we got, the Euro catalog. There was another one that was before then, and I've seen it in American vehicles, and for some reason, I think Dave had that catalog. Where it had them all lined up, and he was in that line because he's an 86 figure,
1987, but he was definitely in the 1990 UK.
That's probably where.
So that's where I saw him, in that catalog. When I got my Warthog, that Cobra Commander was staring me in the face. Yeah, if only. So the file card might be interesting in terms of the tech specs of the thing, because it does read more like it big ups the armor more than it speaks about Cobra Commander. It's definitely making a feature of what this armor brings to the table. So Cobra Commander likes to be up front in the thick of action when its Vipers, Eels, and CGs confront the GI Joe team. I mean, this is nothing new. They always did the same thing to Hawk as well. It's like, all these guys, these command guys, they all like to lead from the front. It's because you want to play with your toy, right? You don't want to leave him in the rear with the gear. Anyway, to protect their leader in the heat of battle, the best technical minds of Destro's armament factory created a special suit of armor that combines flexible bulletproof polymer fabrics with beryllium steel plate components. I guess beryllium steel, like his helmet, has that flexibility. But curious to note that the file card makes this a Destro joint and completely omits Fred 7's contribution. Maybe that was a simplification because the assumption is only a small percentage of your toy buying public is actually reading the comic book. So
Yeah,
or maybe
or
the
toy
idea of the
came
comic book
before
came
the
later.
comic book. Yeah, it was
Yes.
it was just a different idea that he came up with.
Maybe it was just also tricky to talk about something that didn't have a toy. Like there was no Fred toy, so
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, true. The entire suit is air conditioned. Wow, that's comfy.
air
Solvent
conditioning.
resistant. Okay, so you can presumably survive a shot
Whoopsie.
from Cesspool's sludge
Miss.
gun.
Hmm.
And
Or paint
ray
finish.
shielded. Ray shielded. Wow. I guess if everyone's
Night,
he's not
Everyone's
getting his
understanding.
own in this thing.
Tonight
helmet
I
is
dine
fitted
on
with an
turtle
integral-
soup.
the helmet is fitted with an integral Como system. That's handy. Presumably to talk to yourself. Nah. So he's got
Got a
aerials and
snorkel.
stuff. He can communicate out. Well, we're going to talk about that too, I'm sure. Internal
Hmm.
readouts for environmental quality and a miniaturized computer display. Whoa! Like a head-up
Ooh.
display on the mask glass.
Probably,
That's-
it just basically just sounds like Iron Man, but without the ability to fly, essentially.
Pretty much, though. Can
But yours
you
doesn't fly?
honestly say that as a child you didn't give this guy the ability to fly anyway?
Of
I
course,
mean, his backpack kind of tells you he should be flying. Like his little
It feels
backpack's got
the
these like little
backpack
winglets.
should have been like a part of the sculpt, but because of the I suppose the construction limitations of GI Joe at the time.
What do you think the backpack is? I mean, with them mentioning air conditioning, I would almost assume that would be the air conditioning unit in a way.
Yeah,
Because
just
I don't
grab
know ways to fit air conditioning into the actual suit.
I would just play it as a power source. I mean, you've got to
Nah.
keep that separate so you can swap it out quickly enough, but also armor it. So that's why it's got this really cool, like silver appearance. It's very, very
Yeah,
hard
cool,
stuff.
jagged.
And
Well,
it fits
that's-
the aesthetic of the figure. Maybe that's where you're getting your Predator vibes from, or definitely Shredder vibes from, Paul.
Yeah.
Mm.
Also, something that I really love about this toy is on the back. On his back, he's got like a silver plate, and I love that because it speaks to the fact that the backpack mounts to that. It's not just a hole in his clothing, because there's no backpack straps or anything on him, so it has to have that kind of plating there. I love that kind of small detail because it's fun.
It's funny, I never thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. Sort of a magnetic strip.
Strip, yeah. I mean, you
I
can play
always
it
just played
however
it
you want
as
to.
additional armor.
I just don't like. I hate it when I wouldn't say hate it, but I'm not a big fan of when they just put a hole in the back of the figure and there's nothing that sort of speaks to how this thing connects to them. There are times
Quick
when it
kick.
makes sense. Yeah, there are times when it makes sense. Like Quick Kick, I don't want Quick Kick running around with like a half bra all the time. But there are obviously exceptions to this rule. But on a fully armored character like this, it's a sweet detail. I got some questions that I want to ask you guys about Battle Armor Cobra Commander. So he's got these heavy metal like plating, like he's got heavy metal armor going on with his greaves, with his pauldrons, the vambraces, the gauntlets, everything, right? But
Those are
all
awesome
the blue
words.
stuff.
Mm.
Well, and they are accurate terms, to be fair. I just got schooled recently on armor because a friend of mine does that thing where they dress up in armor and they beat the crap out of each other.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's great. Good times. Cool to watch. Anyway, the blue parts of the armor, the blue meat. Now, is that soft? Do you think that there's like a basic layer of Kevlar there? Because the sculpting on this guy sort of suggests that there's some kind of exoskeleton happening in the chest. Like, look at where the ribs are and look at how the cloth pulls there. It's kind of got like, and listeners, if you've got your figure, grab it to hand and have a look. It does feel like there's some kind of exoskeleton vibe going on there. And it's quite unnatural folds. And
I like that. And I mean, if you can bear me reading a little bit more, the file card does offer some detail on that, Paulie.
Ooh.
There's a quote, which once again just reinstates more technical details, but it's a quote nonetheless because it's in quotation marks. They say, "At least we don't have to worry about Cobra outfitting whole units with these suits. Each one costs about as much as a jet fighter. What? The plate
What?
parts can withstand a
Man.
direct hit from a heavy machine gun, and the flexible parts will stop anything up to a
Ugh.
357 Magnum.
My
We suspect that the
God.
helmet has an anti-tamper device with direct hookup to a half-pound of plastic explosive. So yes, the flexible parts are just, they're also armored, sufficiently armored for small arms fire, like from a pistol.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool to know, and it's cool that it's represented visually in the figure. I feel like that's something that they missed on the modern era release of this.
Yeah, I agree with that because like when they redesign these things, there's a lot more skin tight. So I think on the classic one, it feels like the cloth is covering something, while on the new one, it's just he's wearing armor pieces on top of his clothes. It's like the blue is the base, and the armor pieces are kind of like plopped on top of it. He feels safer in the vintage version, I think, than he does in the modern version.
I totally agree with you there. Also,
especially
like
when you yank that helmet off, Rob. Ah, my helmet!
and we were speaking earlier. We were speaking earlier about does this design speak to you of Cobra Commander? And I'm going to say yes, but not initially. Because when what turned me on to this figure, like what made me like Battle Armor Cobra Commander, was actually the modern era version. The modern era version, the body is used quite a bit in other Joes. It's used in the tooling of other Joes. I think specifically, Wraith uses it, parts of it,
Iron Grenadier.
And the Iron yes, there we go, the Iron Grenadier. So I remember seeing those parts and thinking they were really impressive. And then when I looked up the 25th anniversary of Battle Armor Cobra Commander, I remember being very disappointed with it because it felt a bit hokey and kooky compared to the original. And it made the original seem more authentic. And that is, I think that's when it kind of clicked for me that Battle Armor Cobra Commander is more like, he does speak more of being Cobra Commander when you look at it in that context. Or should I say, the vintage one feels more authentic to me than the modern era.
They actually scaled it better because the modern era ones, I think, obviously they kind of scaled the figures up. Overall, they're more lean. So to add that extra layering, I suppose they were like, it looks the same, so it's close enough, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to match what the original's build suggests.
It's also a pity that like details like the little pipe that sits on his left midrib is removed for the modern era version because obviously they wanted to use this tooling of a multi-figure.
No.
Is it still there?
No,
I remember. Why don't I remember that being? There we go. Okay, that's actually quite clever. See, that's how long ago I've looked at my modern era Battle Armor Cobra Commander, who is still actually in his packaging. Can you believe it? I got it from JoeCon, and I haven't been able to get myself to open it.
You're a disgrace, Paul.
Check him out. I can't believe it.
Terrible. I think I got it
for
from
talking about media appearances.
Anyway,
can you believe it, boys. This
madness.
Uniform was debuted in the cartoon series, far less nuanced than it did in the comic book, of course. Cobra Commander in Operation Dragonfire has been recovered from his days as a snake, using the power of Dragonfire and Baroness in a wicked mask. He transforms into a kind of a snake man, and he runs around in a loincloth that he purloined from, I don't know, some ape men or something. Norga hides, basically. Not only is he an expert poacher, but he's an expert seamstress or seamster, whatever. He stitched together some clothes for Cobra Commander, but that didn't last for long because fortunately Copperhead had one of Cobra Commander's old uniforms just lying around in his hovercraft. I mean, come on. He just hands in this thing, and in the very next frame, Cobra Commander's already fully regaled. What is curious to me,
I have so many questions. I have so many questions.
Oh, the questions get deeper because why? Because Cobra Commander is this kind of brown, scaly snake man up to that point. But because the figure, you can clearly see the flesh-colored eyes in the eye holes. From that point onwards in the cartoon, he's got like fleshy eyes, like human, like skin tone eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Like the area around.
So then he takes the mask off, and it's like he's applied makeup or something to his eyes, like Batman.
It's like an AI filter. Like he puts the helmet on, and suddenly his appearance looks more human.
But guys,
Anyway,
seriously, like,
questions.
can you imagine
Shoot.
Copperhead and can you imagine Copperhead in this thing being like, sorry, would you hug me? I would hug me. Goodbye, horses.
You probably enjoyed cosplaying him on weekends. You know, you'd be like, "I'm in charge. I'm Cobra Commander."
So Copperhead is the Fred 7 of the Deke animated series. I like it.
Yeah.
Look,
Mhm.
it's wonderful to note that this became the de facto appearance of Cobra Commander for much of that first season of the Deke animated series, which is
Wow.
astounding because, like, nowadays you can't go a year without several iterations of Cobra Commander. But
Mhm.
back then, this figure came out in the United States in 1987, and he was still in this outfit in the cartoon series in 1990. That's a wide gulf for the same uniform to be in play.
Which, I mean, begs the
Madness.
question then for a lot of people who grew up on the cartoon more than the comics. Maybe this does feel more authentic to them as Cobra Commander. Be interested to hear if anyone was to tell us in the comments on YouTube.
I
or
think
send
the
us
Deke
messages,
animated
let us know.
series pundits are in a vast minority in terms of
Oh,
GI Joe community. So, but at the same time, like, people were still buying toys in 1987. And if this was the only Cobra
Mhm.
Commander on shelves, it was
he was your
make or
Cobra
break.
Commander.
I certainly
Until you
made
read
do
the
with
comics
Disco
and you
Medallion red visor Cobra Commander for many years. Like, that's
Exactly.
the best I could do.
Hell
Same.
yeah.
Yep.
And talking battle commandos as well.
Oh well, if we didn't have that one, that would have been the ultimate Cobra Commander.
Well,
He's buff.
Yeah.
I mean,
All
that's a
hell.
recurring theme as well. With, like, I touched
Cobra.
upon it with file card read, but, like, the high command characters of GI Joe and Cobra needed to still be fun toys. So that's why they OP'd them. That's why we have Hawk with a jetpack and missiles. And that's why we have Cobra Commander in armor that can withstand a bloody rifle shot to the chest.
Explosions.
Well,
Yeah.
interesting enough, his armor got even better in the time period. I believe it's 2001, the same time period when these guys came out. I'm showing the fantastic Murderous Rock Viper and Major Blood 2-pack. They actually improved his armor even further, if you'd be interested to hear. The file card says, as if he weren't vicious enough, Cobra Commander has once again enlisted Destro and his best technical minds to enhance his one-of-a-kind battle armor with miniaturized laser weapons that emit invisible beams of explosive firepower and protective infrared sensor barriers, so he can stand front and center in any battle using the latest laser technology. Ooh, incredible. And he came with the Cobra Laser Viper, so I suppose he was shooting him. He was getting them to shoot him constantly to test his technology or something.
I was thinking he's like a walking disco.
Yeah. Well, especially
With
with
those
someone you
laser
can
beams.
see in the infrared, wavelengths. He would stand out
Awesome. So
crazy
it's
on the.
it's come back a couple of
Big
times. I mean,
badass.
most recently, it's back in comic books.
Oh, there
Once
we go.
again, Larry Hellman's returned to a familiar well. Cobra Commander is in the sort of nerve center of Springfield, while a Crimson Guard dons this uniform and goes on the offensive as Cobra Commander. I'm doing air quotes, finger air quotes, Cobra Commander. I mean,
And
he's
we
pretty
do
bold.
see-
He even shoots Baroness. Way.
Yeah. And we see some really impressive action like stunts from him as well. It's actually a great sequence in the comic book.
Yeah,
One man
it's a
armor
good
punch
showcase for the
fighting
armor.
zombies. What are they? Enhanced mutant cyborgs?
Zombies.
Something.
Whatever.
Do you think?
Something.
I wonder if that's a bit of a precursor for the classified line possibly getting a battle armored Cobra Commander. I wonder if they will to get to that well.
I would love to think they would get around to doing a battle armor Cobra Commander for sure.
And
Only a
another
matter of
one
time,
is
boys.
that, and adding to that, I wonder if we will see a redesigned battle armor Cobra Commander for the Energon run. because I definitely see some kind of Cybertronian.
It's possible.
Cobra,
I mean, the
Destro
thing is,
technology.
yeah, some
Merging.
sort of fusion
Yeah.
there. I mean, the thing is, like, it remained pretty consistent toy wise. Like from '87 all the way up to 2008, it was essentially the same armor, whether it was vintage or modern. I think the most radical recoloring of that in that time period was the '97 one, which came in a 3-pack with Baroness and Destro, which was essentially colored as his normal outfit, blue and red, like the proper blue and red. The biggest departure, actually, for the battle armor version of Cobra Commander came in 2012 when he was packaged as the driver of the HISS tank for the Retaliation line. Very different look for Cobra Commander in his battle armor.
Yes, that's right.
Very different. And a very cool look, which could actually suggest what might come next, I guess, for what he might look like.
And what do we know about his gun? Aside from the fact that I think it's one of the coolest looking guns in the toy line.
Oh, it's got all those cool things on it.
I'm going to pause you for a second, Paul. Since my son has shown up, let's get his opinion on record. Elliot, what do you think of this figure?
I like him.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say? What do you like about him? You like the color?
Yeah.
Do you like his gun?
I like it blue.
You like the blue? Is that your favorite color?
Yeah.
Well, the blue on this one's a little bit green. We'll get into that at the back end. Our personal stories regarding these figures. But yeah, okay. You like the color? You like... What else do you like?
I like green.
You like green? His two favorite colors, guys.
Turquoise. Mix them
so
together.
With their powers combined, you get turquoise. Yeah.
Anyways, Paul, what were you saying, bud?
No, I was just like remarking on the fact that he actually has, at least for me, has one of the coolest looking pistols. It is so ridiculously over designed, but it's such a it fits quite homogeneously, I would say, with his armor design, because
it works. Yeah.
It's great that the vintage has an open holster, so his holster is empty on the vintage version on his left leg. So I always thought that was pretty cool. And it also does make me think, I wonder if there was ever a consideration to give him a bigger gun, because his holster is on the left, and most it is on the left, and it's meant to be drawn from the left. There's no cross draw on this holster, so I wonder if he was meant to get like some kind of rifle or something, but they just didn't have tooling.
It's possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
But then, I mean, it's possible, but I mean, he already came with the backpack, and he came with one gun.
And the hose. Don't forget the hose.
Oh, and the hose. That does count.
Yeah, so Hasbro actually probably put a lot of money into the tooling here, because you've got to figure that, firstly, okay, as Rob mentioned, there's a backpack, there's a hose, he's got his gun, right? Then all of his armor, as was customary for the time, all of his armor and all that is all single-use parts. It doesn't get used in other things. It's bespoke, as Rob has just said now. Then you've also got, how many colors? You got 1, 2, 3. I just want to check that I'm not going crazy. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 colors on him, 5 colors on him.
As much as Lieutenant Falcon. Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So he's expensive. So he was kind of expensive to make. So maybe it was a concession that they had to make, that let's not give him a rifle. At least that's my thinking here when I look at him. I don't know. It's a theory.
For a command character,
come with a pistol as well.
I just think like pistol, backpack, hose, if you must. That's anything more. He's carrying too much. He's like a rifle for a commander. I know, Jetpack Hawk, but still, like Cobra Commander, he needed something elegant. I don't know if this is elegant. The submachine gun thing, it's pretty mongrel. It's pretty powerful. Presumably, it's an upscale, because if it's to be believed that this gun could conceivably go in this holster, I mean, there you've got a better impression of how big it should be. For that. But it's it's toyetic this way. You want your accessory to be substantial, but you can imagine it's a lot smaller. It's a lot more dainty, and in that light, like all the details on it make it very, very cool, exceptional. They re-released that gun again. I think it is in the 90s Mindbender. I
think he comes with that gun.
No, the gun saw reuse for the snow serpents in the Big Shoulder era.
Yes.
Gray, or silverish gray. That's where I first encountered it.
Oh, okay. Now I just
Yeah.
remember. I keep thinking that there's a Battle Corps figure that has that gun, or a Star Brigade figure that uses that had that gun. But anyway,
While you tickle your memory on that front, Paul, let me tickle it on another one. If you're familiar with the GI Joe NES game, as you know GI Joburg is, the final
Hell yeah.
boss of that game is Cobra Commander, of course. But what is he wearing?
Battle armor.
Battle armor.
Yeah, I knew it. It was a good
He
guess
starts
on my part.
off that battle as a cobra. He gets hit by this kind of wicked, like, ring laser energy, which morphs him, this cool morph sequence, into battle armor Cobra Commander. He then leaps onto a chair, sort of gun chair that he sits on, and rains down fire on your player.
That's great.
Very cool.
you know, I think that's
not
actually the
not
first
the most
time I had
difficult
seen
boss
him.
to take out, especially if you have Jetpack Hawk at that point.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I saw him, but I don't think I clicked. I think my brain just painted him as Cobra Commander of the time
And not just
one that
generic
we had.
baddie.
Yeah, I don't. I think it actually could have been a case of I saw him and I was like, oh, they're just making stuff up for the game. Because remember at that time,
There's not a lot of
my G.I.
personality to it. And also, he's always
Mhm.
in long shot. Like, they've got cutscenes. I say cutscenes, it's really just a picture and some text. And he's quite, like, distant from the camera. Whereas you get a nice close-up on guys like Metalhead or Voltar, like Cobra Commanders. So it's very anonymous, I find.
It's a
You get
missed
so much more
opportunity.
character with the hood.
and also paired up with like not having that much visual knowledge on GI Joe at that time for me, because I'd only seen so much, and a lot of it was stuff that came before the video game, figure wise. Oddly enough, but then also, I mean, there were things that were complete mysteries, characters that were complete mysteries to me, that vehicles that I didn't know existed, as we've spoken about ad nauseum in our podcast. But yeah, so I don't think he actually just resonated with me that way. Oh well. I also realized I may have been putting his backpack on the wrong way. Looking at
Well, that's
yours.
another debate. Is it the two
Is
the
it
two
arrow
prongs
up or
up?
arrow down?
Yeah. I
Does it
always do
point up
arrow
or down?
down. That's the file card or the card art appearance. But an equal number of people will come at me in the comments
C'est la
saying,
vie.
"Oh, you idiot!
It's meant
to be
sideways.
Arrow up,
What are you doing?
Sideways.
sideways, side sling. Hey man, it's your toy. Do what you want with it."
Do whatever you want with it. Go
Oh,
crazy.
It's Tunnel Rat V3 that comes with. That's where I saw his gun as well. It's Tunnel
Sonic
Rat.
Fighters.
Sonic Fighters Tunnel Rat. Yes, because I've got this gun twice. Yeah, good times.
Very good. Yeah, it did a
Um,
faction swap.
Yeah, yeah. It was like tired of being manhandled by this. It wasn't being shot properly.
Hey man, look, if Tunnel Rat has somehow purloined Cobra Commander's personal piece, that seems like a very Tunnel Rat thing to do. He's like sneaking around a Cobra base and he's like,
That.
yeah, I'll have that. Nice.
Yeah,
Gun
very
fit
inglorious
for a Cobra
bastards of him.
Commander.
There's a coming back to the comic book, and this is actually when I said at the beginning of this episode, I did say that like it's got kind of he's an interesting toy. I don't know if I use those words exactly. Fascinating toy or fun toy. He's got so many great details. We've kind of touched on it in our chats over this episode now. But, things like if you look like the folds, the creases on his clothing, maybe hinting at the exoskeleton, the little pipe going off his midrib there, the shape of the armor for his legs. I just think he's just a very interesting toy. He's certainly one of the most interesting Cobra Commander designs. And that's kind of what has just endured this toy to me over all these years, because I've just been able to enjoy new things about this going forward. Whereas like Battle Commander Battle Commander or talking Battle Commanders, Cobra Commander is great, but there's very little there for you. You know, he's an excellent execution of the character, but just not as interesting. I feel as Battle Commander, Battle Armor Cobra Commander. Sorry,
Said that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I nearly said Battle Android Cobra Commander because I like to do that. Yeah, sorry, I'm just like talking now.
You are just
what-
like talking now, but this is a
what-
podcast, and that is exactly what you're encouraged to do.
What I like about the
But
toys,
What do
though,
you think about the toys, though?
well, what I like about the toys is that you can actually own 2 versions of Cobra Commander and actually be 2 different characters.
In the same
Because they're
place.
very
Yes.
explicitly, I mean, yes, they
one.
are the vintage one. I mean, it doesn't, it says it's Cobra Commander, but it could not be him. There are 2 very explicit versions that are very much, you take the helmet off, you can see it's Fred. But like, you can exist simultaneously as Fred and Cobra Commander in basically any other version, which I think is really great. Like
It's nice to not have to decide which Cobra Commander I'm going to display on my Terradrome. I can put classic 1984 hooded Cobra Commander side by side with his kind of military decoy Cobra Commander, like a Crimson Guardsman wearing the battle armor, basically. They can be in the same room at the same time and not do a weird like overlap.
which I think is great. It is a great way of like justifying owning 2 versions of the same character.
Because
In
multiple
air quotes.
versions of the same character are problematic. I'm finding myself having to pick like which version do I like the most because I don't want them both side by side on a display. And
Steve's
it sucks,
just
man.
unlocked the
So a
memory.
very good figure can wind up being shelved or worse, put in a tote under a bed somewhere because of my OCD. I'd like to big up myself and GI Joburg for a sec and just say that Battle Armor Cobra Commander got a pretty significant feature in our Renegades play motion series, where a subplot exists of Destro basically shopping his new battle armor to Cobra Commander, and Cobra Commander trying on it on immediately and having an altercation with the Renegades and Sergeant Slaughter, and coming up on top in a down and dirty fight in a bog with Red Dog, Taurus, and the Sarge himself. Cobra Commander is able to best them using this armor. I mean, it would not happen if he was if wearing anything else, I'm sure. But the mighty Sergeant Slaughter and his 2 dogs, or dog and bull, succumb to Cobra Commander in this armor. That action figure, I'm gonna get anecdotal on you boys, actually came from our buddy Cody, who sent me a care package of stuff when we were in lockdown and I was stuck in Australia with very few toys. He was like, "Here, Steve, here's a box of figures. Go nuts." It needed some TLC. He was missing the hose, obviously. I mean, frequently missing piece, and one thumb. But I tried my first thumb repair on him, and I think the results were all right. Certainly good enough for camera. And I gave him a steel. It was actually a guitar string that I painted black.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't it a guitar string?
It was.
Yeah, that's a good thing to use.
It looked
Guitar
right on
string looks
camera.
nice.
Very hardy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough piece.
But it's just got a good. It just scales so nicely at that side, at that size, should I say? Steve, you just unlocked the memory. So
too much
guys,
cool stuff, man.
Too much cool stuff. So, like, my OCD has trouble choosing which one of these is the best as well. Like, in terms of which one do I display on my display shelf. And if you guys ever see my 25th anniversary, you'll see that I've got like multiple versions of Cobra Commander next to each other, and it is troublesome. And it is like, it is an issue. And I remember, Steve, back in the day, like, you were like a little bit upset because they kept on releasing. It was specifically about Snake Eyes, and you kept on saying, "Oh, you know, which one is like a definitive version?" And I remember you were trying to get me to choose one so that I wasn't sucked into buying everyone that got released.
That didn't work.
It's like every new one replaces the previous one, and that is such an unhealthy. I mean, it's, of course, toy companies or companies in general. That is exactly what they want you to do, but it's an unhealthy spiral for me. Like, how can I love the previous best hit any less just because
Be
they
buying
brought out a
another
new
one.
one that seems to be even better. Won't this pattern just repeat itself? And that's why I started just looking backwards and saying, well, let me pluck from history the best one, because
there's
you
only
never
one.
you can never make a second number one.
Yeah,
Numero
you
uno
can't
was
make
numero
another
uno.
Pursuit of Cobra Snake Eyes. I mean, wild.
I'd like to just anecdotally say that the hose eventually did come into my life in a rather joyful circumstance. I was buying some loose joes at a toy market and found a bagged Cobra Commander with hose, but it didn't
Wow.
have a price sticker on the baggie.
Have all
So
the
I took
hose.
my toys up to the seller. We worked out a total, and I said, "Oh, this one doesn't have a price on it." He was like, "Yeah, because it's free." I was like, "You know, it's got the thing.
Free?
It's got the freaking snorkel on it." I didn't lose my mind at the till. The
That's
desk.
wild.
But
He was like,
that was just
no one likes that
delightful.
version of him. That's why I'm
And
just
he's
giving
played
away
with
for free.
this discoloration. He's kind of green, you know why he's got his hose? Because some very thoughtful child decided to super glue it in. That's why. And if you ask
That's
me,
how you don't use things.
all Cobra Commander version 3 should have the snorkel glued in place.
Yeah, time to do it, Paul.
I mean, if you're not going to go through serious play, then maybe you can get away with it. But like, if you, like me, like to get these guys out of doors, yeah, just a little spot of super glue on those hard to find microphones and visors and snorkels and pipes. Yep.
Because I mean,
Do it.
technically, in the end, they came separate because that's just the way they were molded. You know, you were meant to put it together essentially.
HCC makes a good point in his review, saying like, because the helmet was molded front to back, and the ribbing sort of would straddle that, you'd lose the detail when they pour the plastic. So that's why it's a separate piece. You just add
that's
more
why
detail.
they do it.
But
I just imagine that in the Hasbro offices at that day, in those days, I'm sure the designer petitioned for it to be a separate piece. He's like, it's gonna make the silhouette look so much cooler. And I can imagine I can imagine in that situation, having watched some YouTube videos, like specifically like Bobby Valla's sort of toy insights, amongst others. I imagine that this must have been quite a fight because, you know, it's a small plastic piece that can be removed, which makes it kind of, it could make it a choking hazard. You know, this was the 80s and moms were worried about everything. And so, I mean, that was the birth of the helicopter parents as well. So I think that there was a lot of convincing that had to be done to get this pipe done and made as well. Like, I'm sure he was very happy. I'm sure him and the rest of the design team went down and slapped a good whiskey or two after winning that fight.
was it not something as petty as like just a straight up value add? It's like, he doesn't just come with 2 accessory pieces. He comes with 3. There are more little bits of plastic rattling around in that bubble. Therefore, a child will be able to convince mom or dad or guardian, like, look at this guy. He comes with a gun. He comes with a backpack. He comes with a worm. Or in South Africa, you might call it a shongololo.
Shongololo. The thing is, it's just that, I mean, with my career and with my job, you know, there's a lot of having to express value of something, and you'll be surprised like how, yes, I'm pretty sure he turned this argument into it adds value, you know. Meanwhile, the real value it adds is artistic value, so that
it adds
35
value on
years time.
the aftermarket 40 years later when people are like,
exactly,
Cobra
but
Commander with
He knew
hose,
that.
$100.
But in 35 years time, in 35 years in the future, it adds value to this podcast that is now going, yes, I think this is, I would love to pick the brain and ask these toy designers. And in fact, can I just put this out here, Steve, for listeners, if you guys know any of the guys that worked on these figures, please encourage them to watch this video and to maybe just answer some of those questions in the comments. I would love to hear how wrong I am. You know, and but like, jokes aside, seriously, I'd love some of that insight. I think it would be
It's too expensive to include a rifle, so we detach the hose from his neck.
Maybe Dan Cleansmith's book would yield some results. So if you're in possession of that book, dear listener, drop into the YouTube comments section and let us know if that adds
Tell
in.
us
link
where
me
we
to
can
that
buy
book,
it, so we
please.
have to read it ourselves.
I would buy that book in a heartbeat. Why do I not know that that exists?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Living under a
Christmas.
wet rock. He's peddling them at the moment on his Facebook page.
There you go.
Damn, I'm just going
Mhm.
to look that up. I'm just going.
Have a look.
Hopefully, it's available on Amazon or something. You can get it.
I hope everyone
as a-
takes a closer look at their version of Battle Armor Cobra Commander and says, "Cool figure."
That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
That is
Pretty cool.
very cool.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
man.
Steve.
His page on 3D Joe's doesn't have any production notes. Sometimes Carson includes little tidbits that he's gleaned from
You
interviews with
never
creators.
know.
Don't
Mm.
have that here. Look, this is not something we can do live in this show. It's something we can do after the fact. But absolutely, if you have any insight as to this figure's production, anything at all, any tidbits, let us know.
Or any figure that we've spoken about actually on these deep dives. I'd love
Mhm.
to hear it. Figure or vehicle. This is toy history, guys. This is toy.
It really
these
is.
Indeed.
our podcast and podcasts like this are about preserving these toys and preserving the memory of these toys.
You're
you know?
doing a very important service for mankind.
Yeah, we're doing a
So
very
in
important
terms of
service on
vehicle
nostalgia.
occupancy, I mean,
It's true.
unless you're going to put a Battle Android Trooper in the Pogo, I defy you to use any figure other than Battle Armor CC.
Gridiron. Rock and roll.
Yes, video game
Blizzard.
fans. Look, I just think, in terms of what this will do to the occupant, just the function of the Pogo means that you need some robotic assisted spinal support. Otherwise, you're going to become a puddle of jelly.
Mhm.
Well, the Snake Eyes goes in as Snake Eyes. He's going to come out like this. It's like a lot shorter.
He's showing us a very freaky looking figure.
It's a
Is
monster
it
in
a
my pocket.
monster in my pocket? Yeah.
Monster in my pocket ninjas.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adore the idea that this can be a figure that occupies the same shelf as your classic Cobra Commander because it's someone new. And that
Mhm.
continuity has extended into Larry's ARR run in the Skybound era, where once
Yeah, and-
again, the battle armor's back. We're taking it to be Cobra Commander in the eyes of the troops, but it's not. So they can both be used at the same time.
And it was influential enough for it to come back into the toy line for there to be at least two versions of Cobra Commander Battle Armor as actually Fred 7. So
True.
it's
I have that
like a
comic
twist.
pack one, the 2005, I think it was.
2008.
That red and blue one is a bit
Five.
napped, though. I
2005.
think.
What's that?
There's
There's a blue one with red armor. It's quite
the
naff. Rob, you
1997
mentioned it.
version. Yes,
Oh, can't stand it.
there's a
Freaks me out.
3-pack.
I'd say
Because
the
they're
biggest
trying to
problem with that
make it-
1997 version is it has built-in scarcity for the hose because it doesn't come with one. So you're going to have to find a 1987 Cobra Commander with hose, steal
Take it
that
off
hose
him.
off, and put it
Drop
in
it
the
again.
97 version. That was
Hmm.
dumb, man.
Plot
Why?
thickens. Because they didn't have somebody to convince the big heads at the top
Exactly.
to
They were
get
like,
it done.
you're getting 3 figures for the price of 2 and a
What
comic
does he
book.
look like without the hose? I'll tell you, man, it's not a good look. Like
It's-
It's
It's not-
freaky.
It's not a good look. It's missing something.
Awful.
it looks like he's going, oh.
he's owing for Oreos. I don't know. I don't have a great reference that I can think of right now that isn't like a bit provocative. Also, I just want to put out huge props to, and Rob, you're going to help me out here with the artist's name, the comic artist who has been illustrating the latest ARA run. He's just
Oh,
recently
I think
appeared
Steven
in
loves this man more than I
I
do.
think it's 311. Is it 311, Steve? Is the latest
Chris
one? with,
Mooneyham is back on
Mhm.
art choice, taking
This-
over from Francesco Segala.
that man can draw battle armored Cobra Commander
Wait.
super well because this.
Yeah,
I believe it is
Pelletier.
Chris Mooneyham.
Paul
Paul
Pelletier.
Pelletier was the
Thank you.
previous artist for a bit, but
Segala is the colorist on both, but yeah.
Yes.
So Chris Mooneyham he's a great find as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe.
Well, those guys are rocking. In fact, both of them have actually rocked because they've both actually drawn battle armored Cobra Commander, and I think they've both nailed it. Because for me personally, I find this to be such a terribly difficult thing to draw in a way that I like. I have trouble pulling it off. But after this conversation, I've got some cool ideas on how I would want to pull it off. I just hate that I can't pull it off and make it work in its classic form. Sorry, I just wanted to put that out there. I just think it's a difficult thing to draw.
Circling back to the question I asked at the beginning of this episode, is Battle Armor Cobra Commander? Or is he someone else?
I'm going to say someone else. Sorry, when we started this, I was like, yeah, he's Cobra Commander. And I said what I said earlier. And as we've been having this conversation, I keep thinking, no, but that's what makes him right. Because he's Cobra Commander-ish, but something's off. And that's what it's supposed to be.
He rocks a gun in the left side. He's a lefty like you, Paul. There's something off.
That's Paul.
There's something wrong there.
Fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
Devils.
Rob, how about you, man?
Recognize your leaders.
Well,
which Cobra Commander? Is this one Cobra Commander or this one Cobra Commander? Which one?
I think you won me over, or maybe I won myself over. Being able to display two different versions of Cobra Commander next to each other and knowing that one of them doesn't have to be Cobra Commander. Yeah, for sure. Fred 7 all the way. Or someone else.
Or
Baroness.
someone else. Yeah, dude. Shoot Cobra Commander in the back and stuck Baroness. This guy needs to go down. And he did. I mean, we didn't touch upon the grisly end of Fred 7, but along with all the other treacherous parties, he gets buried in the landlocked freighter and ultimately succumbs to botulism from a bad can of beans.
What is that? Ration D or something that goes off?
Whoa.
Ration
D goes off all the time.
But they did. I remember Larry.
It's bad times. Bad time. But very good times from our patrons. Thanks for and you guys are awesome.
Absolute best people in the history of the world.
Yo, Joe, everybody.
We have to do it. This battle Cobra Commander has a big nose. Berg. Don't know why I did that in addition.